You know, so 1994 comes. What is so special about 1994?
1994 was the time that I got into Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I was introduced by a friend named Carlos Vilches at a park. And I hadn't seen him in a while, and he said to me, Roland, man, you want to wrestle? I said, yeah, I'll wrestle you. He's a little bitty guy. Next thing you know, he's tying me up in knots. I was really surprised. And then, make a long story short, a few days later, we met up. We drove to West Los Angeles, and we met one of the brothers, the Hickson brothers. I'm sorry, the Gracie brothers. And the one I was training with was Rickson Gracie. Turns out that he was the line of the family, and it was just a pure accident. But his personality fitted me great because he was aggressive, but passive aggressive. And I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I did that for about 2 years. Moved to Orange County, California. Started training with his cousin Rodrigo and Ken Gaberson. And then in 1996, another chapter of my life happened. I started.
So let's keep on.
Okay.
Let's keep on the training with the Gracies.
Okay.
They're the fathers of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So as you're getting this training, were you one of the like some of their original students they started teaching in America? Like, were you part of like the, you know how they say the first class, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously it's been in Brazil, a long
Right.
time. Now it's in the States. Basically, like, you think about the NFL when it started. You were in were you in one of the first classes of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before it turned into what?
Yeah, I believe I was the first generation of the academy in West Los Angeles, because his brother Horion always had one in Torrance.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to guess, I would say yes, I was the first generation. It was really special, really good times.
Were there any other, any known fighters you trained with that, maybe some people would know, or is it more just kind of like,
the Rickson Academy was more BJJ, the gi, a little bit of no gi. Wasn't really MMA. Back in those days, they called it Bali Tulu, no rules bar. So I was fortunate enough to train with Hickson Gracie a couple times during class. When he was getting ready for his fights, occasionally I was in line. I got to roll with him, and it was a great experience. I didn't know who he was really. I mean, I knew he was somebody special, but I really didn't know he was going to be the modern day Bruce Lee. I mean, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know.
So now coming from the football angle, right, where you're used to being the one, taking, beating up on everybody and just, owning everyone, and getting, gassing everybody out. Now you come into this world, right? You're new. Now, like you said, your buddy, who you probably looked at like, oh, I got this guy. He's throwing you in a pretzel, twisting you up, and now you're going into this world. What was your mindset going into Brazilian? I'm going to call it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not calling it MMA.
Okay.
Calling it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Getting on a mat, having a gi, and now you go from the grappling of holding and pushing and tackling to now you gotta change, you gotta pivot a little bit. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was a big adjustment for me, because in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu we have something called the guard. You lay on your back, you wrap your legs around the guy. I personally never liked it. It just wasn't for me. It was more designed for guys more non-athletic, but maybe not as strong. I was physically still very strong, very athletic. I was explosive. I think I was 31 when I started. So I got my butt kicked the first couple months. But once I started to kind of grasp the foundation, I started to make a name for myself. And I started to elevate like supersonic speed, competing, and really testing my skills against some of the best guys. In those days, it was Brazil, because they would fly out for the tournaments, because a lot of the Americans were low ranks, because it was such an early stage of the game. Mm-hmm. So, but I adjusted okay. I mean, I was able to put my ego to the side. Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
That must have been a little hard, though. Must have been a little hard.
You won't believe it, but it didn't really bother me that much. Really? Yeah, it was. I was surprised, because I'm actually a passive-aggressive guy, and I knew enough that I couldn't disrespect them, because I would get my butt kicked.
Right.
And I knew what to do and what not to say. But it was a great experience. Changed my life forever.
let's get into that. So when you say it changed your life forever, because obviously, you know, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA started becoming on the rise. You know, Ultimate Fighting Championship just started, and that's before it turned, you know, before it got, you know, Hollywood, you know, where it was basically no holds barred fighting. You know, training with all those guys now. So now let's fast forward a little bit, because you said, you know, 1996 was a pivotal year. You know, you did your training. So what happened in 1996?
In 1996, I moved to Arizona, and I opened up my very first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy called Barusa. I was not an MMA guy. Mm-hmm. Even though MMA was probably built more for me than, say, BJJ or Nogi. At the time, and a little before that, I was in the entertainment business, where the way you look, you know, your face, you couldn't get black eyes and etc. I was in a position that, you know, you had to look kind of presentable. Mm-hmm. And I personally didn't like to fight naturally. It just wasn't my thing. Right. Plus, I was a party animal. I mean, I never
You didn't have discipline.
No. Every tournament I ever did, I can honestly say, I partied the night before. Hard. Yeah, I never trained. And, you know, it was just a hobby for me. You know, it was just fun for me. But when I was doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, they were putting me in super matches with these guys from Brazil, these champions. I even went against the Mundial absolute champion, Fernando Margarita Puentes. This guy, you look him up, he's a legend, and he whooped me. But, you know, I think I gave him a little bit of a battle. We went almost 10 minutes.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and I was 40 years old, and I was giving up, you know, I gave up, I'm not sounding like a big whiner now, I gave up probably 30 pounds, but I never trained for that match. The night before, I was in Viva Loca.
Yeah, we were in Barcelona drinking.
Well, I thought I was Ricky Martin back then, so I was living Viva Loca. It's the truth. I was partying.
I know, man. I partied with you a little bit there that time.
So, you know, I did okay as a competitor in BJJ, Nogi. I did an MMA fight once. You were there. You DJ'd it. And I had you play Lady Gaga while I was fighting.
Yeah, that was stupid. But let's keep it back in the beginning stages of coming to Arizona, opening up Barusa. Wait, did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
You know, opening up the studio. Now, when you came here and opened up the studio, did you have to have permission to say that you know, this is Gracie, you know, Jiu-Jitsu or anything like that, or were you able to open up on your own? You know,
actually, you needed permission if you used the Gracie name.
Okay.
Barusa wasn't a Gracie name. I had an opportunity to possibly be affiliated to Ricks and Gracie. We spoke for a little bit, but at the time, I was in a bad place. I just felt like I wanted to go another way, and kind of bit me in the ass in one sense. In one sense, it didn't. I was a very hard guy to contain. I wanted to be free.
You wanted to do it your way.
Yeah, I didn't want to do business being controlled, because I felt that it was going to hinder me. Mm-hmm. But little did I know, it affected me in a lot of ways, but it also benefited me in a lot of ways.
So, as part of the benefiting, when you say it would have benefited you, so let's go into that a little bit.
Well, what happened was I got my purple belt and brown belt under Ken Gaberson, the first American black belt. Back in those days, Americans didn't have black belts. Right. So, make a long story short, Ken Gaberson, you know, went through some troubling in his life, and again, I don't want to get into that. I believe he didn't no longer have the school. And other things happened as well in my life. So what happened was I went solo. I was independent. I had no longer an instructor. I was like a nomad. Mm-hmm. So one time I was asked to do a super match, and it was the Machado tournament, and one of the Machados asked me to go against one of their black belts named David Myers. Well, I told the Machado brothers that I was not a black belt, and they said, don't worry about it, just put one on. You competed long enough as a brown belt. So I went out there, we went the distance, they gave him advantage points. That means no points were given, but the referee felt that he deserved it. So after that, I pretty much I pretty much promoted myself. I felt like I just went against one of the top black belts in the world. I'm solo. I mean, what am I going to do? Go out and get a certificate with some black belt instructor I don't even know?
Yeah.
So that was the demise of my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career, where a lot of people were bad-mouthing me, saying that I'm not legit, I'm not certified, and I'm thinking, I just went against one of the top black belts in the world.
Right.
Just lost by, I don't know, 2 or 3 points of Mario Sperry in the Mundial in Brazil, and that's not enough for you guys. So that kind of hurt me a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did that how did that affect you, mentally? Physically, I mean, you don't get physically hurt by it, but like mentally, like, you go through a lot of the trials and tribulations, like, why are they blacklisting me? Why, it's like, if I can do this, this, and this, why is that so important? But again, is that because of the tradition why they were upset, or were they just,
That's what it was.
It was more about the tradition?
Well, the tradition and martial art traditions, I kind of, did something maybe wasn't traditional, but the Gracies did it. I mean, Helio and Carlos on themselves promoted themselves. They weren't promoted to black belt. So the founders of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu did the same thing I did. So this is another thing too. You get a lot of MMA guys that never competed with a gi or no gi, but they're black belts. They get a black belt, and they never competed. And for me, thinking to myself, wow, I competed at all belt levels, and they want to do that to me. So what happened is, as time went on, a lot of Brazilians started to move to Arizona, and they started to badmouth me and tell a lot of the people, don't train with me, I'm a fraud, I'm a fake, he's not legitimate, I couldn't even go to tournaments anymore to compete. And then by this time, there started to be a lot of American black belts, and I thought about it for a long time. Should I embrace them? Should I get affiliated with them? So I eventually got my black belt, I want to say 2015, with one of my ex-students, Martin Escobar. I believe he's under Diago.
So you actually, I didn't know that. You actually went back. I mean, fast forward, we're going, many years now, but you actually did go and officially get.
Yeah, Martin Escobar was a former student of mine, and he became a black belt, and he called me up one day and says, Roland, let me promote you, just to put this thing to rest.
Mm-hmm.
I know you know that you are, but let's put this to rest. But I think a lot of the reasons the Brazilians were doing what they were doing to me is because they were threatened by me in business.
Right.
I did really well. And I used to host grappling tournaments and BJJ tournaments. Before you know it, no one was supporting me anymore partly because of the black belt, partly competition because they were promoting events too. And next thing you know, I was out of the industry promoting.
So you're out of the, you're out of the, so like you said, you're out of the industry, promoting, you're blacklisted from from a school standpoint. What happened next? What is going through your mind now? Going, this is my livelihood. Like, they're taking every avenue. They're trying to take it away from me. So what was?
It was very, very difficult. It was, you had a lot of friends in the BJJ world that eventually created their own schools, and they were nice to me face to face, but they started to not support me in my grappling and gi tournaments. And it was really, really hurtful that they were doing that, along with former students of mine. They eventually opened up their schools and became instructors. They weren't supporting me either. It was like, why are they taking it this far? I mean, it was like too much. So eventually, I was no longer doing gi and no gi tournaments, but at the same time, I was still doing Muay Thai and Rage in the Cage shows. So I was still promoting, but not my grassroots, what I truly enjoyed more than anything, and that was the tournaments.
Okay, so let's back up, because you just said something that caught my ear. So Rage in the Cage, right?
Yeah.
When did, so you got your studio, and now you're not promoting the tournaments anymore. Where did Rage in the Cage fall into play with with your school, your gi tournaments and everything? So where did Rage in the Cage get kind of put in there?
It was actually a pure accident. It was 1998. I went to Los Angeles and I watched the MMA show. I believe John Lober put it together. King Gaberson was there. All of us were there. It was in, I think, a high school gym or a college gym. And then I said to myself, wow, I'm going to do an MMA show. And then a couple of months later, I did my very first Rage in the Cage in November of '98. It was, we used a boxing ring with 4 panels of fence, like a square. So I started to promote MMA shows. And then I got into the MMA world in terms of coaching. And I've had quite a bit of guys come through my personal academy: Edwin DeLees, Joe Riggs, Kingsbury, Kyle Kingsbury, Gilbert Adonis. I mean, Omar Moore didn't actually train with me. He actually fought in the
I thought
show.
he trained with you too. I'm sorry.
And I believe Rage in the Cage was one of the biggest shows in terms of a feeder to Strikeforce, Bellator, UFC. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are, but it was a nice.
You were like the AAA,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you were. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know, you were the AAA for the big dance, right?
Right.
So like
Right.
you know, Arizona. A lot of fighters come out of
Right.
Arizona from all the different
Right.
you know studios and out here.
Yeah.
And Rage in the Cage was that show that everybody, you know, was the only one in the valley for a long time.
Yeah, it was.
You know, so you have all these schools just feeding, and you know, obviously you had a ranking system.
Yeah.
Now part of that ranking system, now you know we're gonna get into you know because obviously we can go through the evolution of Rage in the Cage, how it started rodeo nights and all the way up to celebrity theaters and you know that, but you know let's get into like the meat of it. Like so obviously you know you brought something new to Arizona. Obviously MMA in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s became one of the hottest things ever. It wound up stepping on the toes of another sport that was dying, you know, was becoming a dying sport at the time, and that was boxing. So how did MMA get infused with you know boxing, right? Because I know there's a little friction there, like with them coming into that world, like you know, there's a ranking system in boxing, so now you got to do a ranking system for Rage in the Cage. Like, how did that work with trying to get them to?
Well, what happened was from 1998 to 2001, we were not regulated by the State Boxing Commission.
Oh, okay.
We were not. So in 2001 came, we were now in the world, the boxing world, the government agency that regulates it. So for me, it wasn't that hard of a transition, personally. The thing I didn't like, it took a couple of years. I can't remember how many. We were open hands, like slap fighting. And I think that hurt us big time on the growth. Because a lot of people will come to the show, they love it, and once they see open hands, they're like, nah, I don't want to see
I remember that. Yeah, remember that. Yeah.
So they would stop coming. So that hurt us big time. I did a couple professional boxing events, and I did quite a bit of Muay Thai shows, you know, Bad Blood. So I was promoting, you know, Muay Thai, boxing, MMA for a long time. You know, under the record of the Boxing Commission, I believe I'm at 171 shows MMA. But unofficially, I think I'm closer to 1,000.
Is that including all the
UCFC?
Yeah. So all your shows together is you probably promoted close to 1,000 shows.
Yeah, counting Muay Thai, the UCFC, Ultimate Combat Fighting Challenge. It was an amateur headgear MMA show along with Rage in the Cage. So, you know, I would say if you want to add the grappling, the BJJ, definitely over 1,000. I mean, we were doing 2 to 3 shows a month, flipping them.
I know. I was part of a lot of those.
yeah, and it was such an incredible period. I mean, it was so special. I mean, I loved it. The last couple of years, I didn't really enjoy it as much, but
you get burnt out, and you know things change. You know, at that point, MMA was at its peak, so it's like you put on a show. UFC's got 5 shows a month going on. You know.